This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Good morning. It's Thursday, March 6th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President Trump is giving American automakers a brief break from his stiff new tariffs. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Tough words and high tension at a House hearing on sanctuary cities. I'm Rich Johnson.
The Supreme Court weighs in on the timeline surrounding USAID.
94% of USAID staff have been fired.
I'm Clayton Neville.
The GOP targets Democrats' censure vote. We'll have details.
On Wall Street, the president paused auto tariffs. Stocks rallied. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Reports that President Trump wants to move now to end the Department of Education. And trouble for Andrew Cuomo, now running for New York City mayor. All ahead on America in the Morning. As 25% tariffs are now underway on Canadian and Mexican products entering the U.S., President Trump shifted gears and is now giving U.S. automakers a brief exemption from his tariffs, but only for 30 days. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports Canada is responding with retaliatory tariffs against U.S. goods, with Ontario Premier Doug Ford announcing the removal of all U.S.-made alcohol products from Canadian store shelves. Audio courtesy CTV.
Starting today, LCBO, the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world, will begin removing U.S. products from its store shelves, meaning other retailers, bars, and restaurants in the province will no longer be able to restock U.S. products. Also, starting today, all U.S.-based companies will be banned from taking part in government procurement. U.S.-based businesses will now lose out on tens of billions of dollars in revenues. They only have President Trump to blame.
President Trump is giving American automakers a brief break from his stiff new tariffs on Mexican and Canadian imports.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. It won't be much.
Amid worries the president's trade war could crush domestic manufacturing.
We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd, but at the request of the companies associated with USMCA, the president is giving them an exemption for 1 month so they are not at an economic disadvantage.
Spokeswoman Caroline Levitt says that's at the request of the big three automakers.
The three companies that he spoke to are Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors. They requested the call, they made the ask, and the president is happy to do it. It's a 1-month exemption.
The White House had insisted there would be no exemptions from tariffs. The fast shift reflects that the tariffs have both alienated allies and fueled fears at home of higher prices. The president's commerce chief has suggested the U.S. is looking to meet Canada and Mexico in the middle, and the president spoke today with Canadian leader Justin Trudeau. But a senior Canadian official says Trudeau will not lift Canada's retaliatory tariffs, while the president still taxes Canadian imports. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Being told they had blood on their hands, the mayors from 4 of America's largest cities, New York, Chicago, Denver, and Boston, pushed back on Republican lawmakers' claims over sanctuary city policies. Correspondent Rich Johnson reports that the mayors faced sharp criticism as they vigorously tried to defend their positions on Capitol Hill.
House Oversight Committee Chair, Kentucky Republican James Comer, quickly set his agenda.
Sanctuary cities make us all live safe and are a public safety nightmare.
Countered by ranking Democrat Jerry Connolly of Virginia, who said the 4 mayors were hauled before the panel
because those cities have some limits on how intrusively and aggressively their own officials can conduct federal immigration operations and responsibilities.
The spotlight quickly fell on New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is, for the moment, not facing a long list of federal corruption charges, which the Justice Department dropped last month. California Democrat Robert Garcia wanted to know how that happened.
Now, Mr. Mayor, we have a right to know if the Trump administration has actually coerced you into agreeing to anything. And Mayor Adams, I also want to be very clear. Are you selling out New Yorkers to save yourself from prosecution?
There's no deal, no quid pro quo, and I did nothing wrong.
Adams repeatedly faced that question and repeatedly said the matter remains before a judge. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson also endured tough words from Illinois Republican Darren LaHood.
These policies have further harmed the economy in Illinois, increased crime throughout our state, and endangered hardworking, law-abiding Illinois citizens.
And Johnson pushed back.
Sensationalizing tragedy in the name of political expediency is not governing. It's grandstanding.
Republicans repeatedly raised a number of brutal crimes committed by immigrants. Comer directly linked those crimes and sanctuary cities, saying they only create sanctuary for criminals. But when it comes to safe cities, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu pointed to the White House, and she objected to what she called the false narrative regarding those in the U.S. illegally.
The false narrative is that immigrants in general are criminals, or immigrants in general cause all sorts of danger and harm. That is actually what is undermining safety in our communities. If you wanted to make us safe, pass gun reforms, stop cutting Medicaid, stop cutting cancer research, stop cutting funds for veterans. That is what will make our city safe.
I'm Rich Johnson.
USAID money? High Court responds. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Yesterday, severe weather in the south. Today, our shift is in the west. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
The latest storm tracking across parts of the western U.S. means another day of widespread clouds and precipitation from California and southern Oregon to southern Montana, western Colorado, much of Nevada and Utah, and even parts of Arizona. While steadier rain and some showers are likely to be more prevalent in California, northwestern Utah, and eastern Arizona, locations from the Sierra Nevada mountains north and east face a higher chance of snow. Through Thursday night, at least a general 1 to 3 inches of snow can be expected from north-central Arizona and central Utah through far southeastern Idaho and eastward into central Iowa, also extending through the Colorado Rockies where up to a foot of snow is expected through tonight. Much of California then dries out for Friday as the focus shifts toward the Four Corners states before the storm pulls into the southern states for the weekend. In terms of the rest of the nation for this Thursday, it's a generally dry day through the Plain states outside of some rain and snow near and along the Nebraska-South Dakota border. Chilly conditions spread from the upper Midwest into the central Gulf Coast behind a cold front, with southwesterly winds funneling in warmer air from western Oklahoma into much of Texas under prevailing high pressure. Dry conditions also win out over the southeast and much of the mid-Atlantic after a rather stormy Wednesday, but more active weather continues for a time in parts of the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Expect some snow showers and flurries from eastern Michigan into mostly the higher terrain from western Virginia into southwestern Pennsylvania, but there can be some flakes flying over much of New York State, with rain showers more likely for New England. In Tulsa, look for some sunshine today with a high of 60. For Burlington, Vermont, it's looking cloudy and mild today with a shower around and a high of 51. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. The U.S. Supreme Court has weighed in on a case surrounding the Trump administration's freeze on foreign aid money. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The ruling doesn't stop the freeze that impacts the U.S. Agency for International Development, known as USAID. Instead, it deals with a timeline for the Trump administration to pay nearly $2 billion owed to aid groups and contractors for projects funded by USAID. Democrats have been critical of the freeze, which President Trump insists is temporary and a way to cut unnecessary spending. Senator Chris Murphy.
94% of USAID staff have been fired or essentially permanently furloughed.
The ruling reinstates a lower court ruling and is considered a defeat for the Trump administration for now. Republicans hoping the courts don't delay the process of cutting spending for too long. The governor of Indiana, Mike Braun, spoke with Fox Business.
They will not stop trying to find out how you run our government more efficiently.
Lawyers now instructed to work on a potential timeline for payment following the 5-4 Supreme Court ruling that saw 4 conservative justices dissent. I'm Clayton Neville.
House Republicans are moving quickly to punish the Texas Democrat who was escorted from the House chamber for repeatedly disrupting President Donald Trump's Tuesday night speech. Saying on the House floor that his actions were beyond the pale, Washington State GOP Congressman Dan Newhouse introduced a censure resolution against Representative Al Green, who was removed by the House Sergeant-at-Arms after standing up and shouting during the opening minutes of Trump's speech to Congress. The House is expected to hold the vote to censure Green sometime later today. Weight loss craze lowers snack sales. That when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Let's find out what's moving markets today. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a whipsaw day for stocks. Markets seemed to move on every little headline about tariffs coming out of the White House yesterday. In the end, a rally for stocks on some temporary tariff exemptions for the auto industry. Some investors say the market talks and the president listens.
Trump has come in untethered, and I do believe that he has assessed that his time, right, is not long. Let's say they lose Congress in the midterms, right? And his ability to get a lot more done kind of goes away in that scenario. So get it all done now. But we had proof today of what markets do. I think Trump only listens to the markets. He certainly doesn't listen to anything else. So what happens, right? The markets sell off. We lose the whole Trump bump. And oh, okay, we're not going to do the tariffs on cars with these guys, right? We're going to moderate our policy, and we see this bump today.
Sycamore Tree CEO Mark Okada on CNBC. The Dow was up almost 500 points yesterday. Medicaid could be on the chopping block. The House budget resolution adopted last week may be hiding it, according to analysts talking to CNBC. The resolution gives the House Energy and Commerce Committee the job of finding a certain amount of savings. And experts tell CNBC it can't do that without hefty cuts to Medicaid. The full story is at CNBC.com. Campbell's out with disappointing quarterly results. It makes soup, of course, but it also makes snacks like Cape Cod potato chips, Milano cookies, and goldfish. And some say weight loss drugs are to blame for lower snack sales.
Snacks are doing quite badly, okay? Much worse than people thought. The conference call is a little grim.
What's going on here, Jim?
No one's willing to say it. Okay, it's just like, well, right now it's just they're kind of like not buying us, but
it's the
David,
shot, baby.
This is what
the shot.
This is what they won't talk about. If they don't, maybe they should have GLP-1 in the food.
GLP-1s are, as you say, potential existential crisis. I know plenty of people who are using them. When you go to dinner with them, they eat half their portion.
That's CNBC's David Faber with Mad Money host Jim Cramer. ADP says far fewer jobs were created last month in the private sector than expected. We get the government's big jobs report tomorrow morning. U.S. crude oil hit its lowest in almost 3 years. But Americans are worried it'll just go up again because of the Trump tariffs.
Is gas going to go through the roof?
It may, and quickly.
The next week or so, gas prices will start going up. By mid-March, gas prices in New England could be 20 to 30 cents a gallon higher.
Gas Buddies Patrick DeHaan spoke with NBC News. On today's watch list, we get earnings from Macy's, Kroger, Costco, Broadcom, and Gap. And we find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Closing the Department of Education. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. President Trump is expected to issue an executive order as soon as today aimed at dismantling the Education Department. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Education Secretary Linda McMahon was ordered to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Education Department based on the maximum extent appropriate and permitted by law. legal experts have said that fully unwinding the cabinet-level department would require a filibuster-proof 60-vote majority in the Senate. During her Senate confirmation hearings, now Education Secretary Linda McMahon testified that Trump wasn't intending to cut federal programs, but instead make them more efficient. The Education Department doesn't just oversee learning, it also covers students' civil rights as well as a portfolio of student loans. America in the Morning continues. With former Governor Andrew Cuomo now in the race to become New York City's next mayor, one of the women who's accused him of sexual assault that led to his downfall is speaking out. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Lindsey Boylan helped drive Andrew Cuomo from office when she came forward as the first woman to accuse the former governor of sexual harassment, which he denies. Now Cuomo is back running for New York City mayor, and Boylan tells the Associated Press Democrats who called on him to resign need to loudly condemn his candidacy.
People who should be speaking up aren't. So I don't think anything has specifically changed with women being angry about how our rights are being taken away. But the fact that most of our leaders are more interested in staying comfortable and staying in their jobs than actually protecting us and defending us, that's gotten much worse.
Boylan once worked for Cuomo. A commission report found he sexually harassed 11 women. The former governor apologized for what he calls offending the women and allowed that he had sometimes been too familiar with people. Julie Walker, New York.
America in the Morning for Thursday, March 6th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The U.S. reportedly speaking with Hamas. I'm Clayton Neville.
Retaliatory tariffs from Mexico, investigating a gruesome New York killing, an Alaskan avalanche, and the DOJ now looking to college campus anti-Semitism.
The mayor of Washington, D.C. says a Black Lives Matter painting will be removed from a street near the White House. Ed Donahue, Washington.
The Trump administration is dropping an emergency abortion case in Idaho. Hayat Benjwani, Washington.
DOJ announces charges against a dozen Chinese hackers. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
The cause of death for Gene Hackman and his wife is still a mystery. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Folks reported 119 separate high wind events across the South yesterday, including one tornado. Here's today's forecast with AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Wednesday brought quite a swath of severe weather to the mid-Atlantic and parts of the southeast, along and ahead of a cold front, mainly in the form of damaging winds. However, there was a tornado in Fairview, North Carolina, not far to the south and east of Charlotte, that produced some damage early in the day. For today, that front has now shifted mostly off the east coast. However, the front does remain over New England for a time today, with spotty showers of mainly rain. Farther to the west, the colder air filtering in behind the storm should mean at least some snow mixing in from Vermont into northern New York, with snow showers a bit more likely from central New York and northeastern Pennsylvania, and south and west into eastern lower Michigan, much of Ohio, and along the Appalachian Mountains into western parts of Virginia. Drier conditions are in store for the rest of the east coast, warmer air instead for the southern plains. Most of the northern plains should be dry for much of the day today, but a weak disturbance may bring some afternoon flurries to far northern Minnesota and the upper peninsula of Michigan. A separate storm spinning through the southwest means snow from the Wasatch Range of Utah into much of Wyoming and through the Colorado Rockies, where up to a foot of snow may fall over some of the highest peaks of the region. At least 1 to 3 inches of snow can be expected as far north as the Cheyenne, Wyoming area and as far east as around Des Moines, Iowa through tonight. Otherwise, it's looking like a mainly dry Thursday for the Pacific Northwest, with temperatures not far from historical averages. Watch for some wet weather over much of interior Northern California, coastal Southern California, and most of Central California, with snow instead through the Sierra Nevada. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. President Trump issued a stern warning to the terrorist group Hamas in a Truth Social post, demanding all hostages they've now been holding for more than 16 months be returned immediately. Trump said, quote, "The U.S. is sending Israel all it needs to finish the job, and not a single Hamas member will be safe if you don't do as I say," end quote. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports the U.S. is reportedly in contact with Hamas as the Trump administration works toward peace in the Middle East.
The United States has long held the policy that it doesn't negotiate with terrorists, but there are reports of 2 direct meetings between a member of the Trump administration and the Palestinian militant group Hamas.
These are ongoing talks and discussions. I am not going to detail them here. There are American lives at stake.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked about the reported meetings.
Well, when it comes to the negotiations that you're referring to, first of all, the special envoy who's engaged in those negotiations does have the authority to talk to anyone. Israel was consulted on this matter. And look, dialogue and talking to people around the world to do what's in the best interest of the American people is something that the president has proven is what he believes is good faith effort to do what's right for the American people.
Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7th of 2023 led to retaliatory attacks by Israel that have decimated Gaza and continue today. President Trump with a stern post on social media this week saying, quote, "Shalom Hamas" means hello and goodbye. He said you can choose. Trump called it a last warning and demanded remaining hostages be released and dead bodies be returned. Dozens of hostages still believed to be alive. I'm Clayton Neville.
While Mexico has not been as vocal about tariffs as some leaders in Canada have been, the president of Mexico says she'll be announcing 25% retaliatory tariffs when she addresses the Mexican people in an event in Mexico City's Central Plaza Sunday. This, as Reuters is reporting that Mexico's state-run oil company is in talks with nations in Asia and Europe to sell their oil. Pemex reported last year they exported more than 530,000 barrels per day to the United States, which is now facing new tariffs, and other Mexican companies are looking for new non-American trading partners. Correspondent Donna Warder reports President Trump's tariffs are already having an impact on businesses on both sides of the U.S.-Canadian border.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly.
At midnight Tuesday, the United States imposed 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico, prompting Canada to impose retaliatory tariffs.
We've gotten lots of calls from our customers that are worried about the impact of the price. And apparently some of our competitors have raised their prices in response.
Mel Guthrie of Guthrie Lumber in Livonia, Michigan, says up to 30% of his supply comes from Canada.
The Canadian suppliers are freaking out, and they're going to try and shove it down our throats. They're really, really mad and hurt and feeling anti-U.S. right now.
Jonathan Azupardi, CEO and president of Laval Tool in Tecumseh, Ontario, says the North American auto sector is very fragile. His company makes molds and builds tooling for the auto and household construction industries.
Our customers are concerned, obviously. They want to make sure that they're insulated as much as possible. They don't have 25% factored into their price. We have a responsibility to our clients to make sure that we can, like I said before, mitigate, eliminate, or absorb those tariffs as much as possible.
President Donald Trump now says he's granting a 1-month exemption for U.S. automakers after speaking with the leaders of Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. I'm Donna Warder.
A warning concerning this next story. Gruesome details are emerging into the death of a man in upstate New York. Correspondent Julie Walker reports on indictments including first-degree murder in the tortured death of Sam Nordquist, which includes 2 children as young as 7 years old being ordered to torture the man who was also beaten and was sexually assaulted over the span of more than a month.
7 people indicted on murder and kidnapping charges in the killing of Sam Nordquist in upstate New York last month.
Sam's death began on or about January 1st of 2025 until his actual death on February 2nd of 2025. It's a rare circumstance where we stand before you and charge this subdivision of murder in the first degree, where it alleges that somebody was tortured to death.
Ontario County ADA Kelly Wolford says the 24-year-old was treated like a dog for weeks.
Sam was beaten, assaulted, sexually abused, starved, held captive, and we cannot make sense of that.
She says the transgender man had been living with Precious Arzuaga, one of the 7 indicted. However, hate crime charges are not being filed.
A hate crime would make this charge about Sam's gender or about Sam's race, and it's so much bigger. To limit us to a hate crime would be an injustice to Sam. Sam deserves to have this story told in its entirety.
Wolford also says 2 children were forced to engage in the torture as well. Audio courtesy WHAM-TV. Julie Walker, New York.
When we return on America in the Morning from California, school systems being investigated for anti-Semitism, Idaho's emergency abortion ban, and Chinese hackers busted. Those stories and more after these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. The Justice Department says it's investigating the University of California system over allegations of anti-Semitism in the wake of protests that broke out on several campuses over the war between Israel and Hamas. Following the October 7th, 2023 Hamas terrorist attack on Israel and Israel's retaliatory military operation in Gaza, student encampments popped up on a number of college campuses across the country, including at UCLA and other UC system campuses. Protesters were calling for an end to the war, a U.S. arms embargo on Israel, and for their universities to divest from Israel. But as we know, some demonstrations turned violent, with reports of damage and acts of anti-Semitism directed toward Jewish students. In New York City, Barnard College was evacuated Wednesday evening after a bomb threat was reported on the campus, where pro-Palestinian protesters had taken over one of the school's buildings. President Trump has threatened to pull federal funding from any school that continues to allow what he calls illegal protests. The mayor of Washington, D.C. is defending the planned removal of the Black Lives Matter painting mural on the street blocks away from the White House. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
The mayor of Washington, D.C. says a Black Lives Matter painting will be removed from a street near the White House. The words Black Lives Matter are painted across 16th Street within sight of the White House.
Black Lives Matter.
Mayor Muriel Bowser says the city can't afford to be distracted by meaningless congressional interference, and the devastating impacts of federal job cuts must be the #1 concern. Bowser is facing growing pressure of a federal takeover from President Trump and Republicans in Congress. The mayor ordered the painting in 2020 and renamed the intersection Black Lives Matter Plaza as a public act of defiance after days of chaotic protests there over police brutality following the killing of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer. At the time, the local Black Lives Matter affiliate dismissed the painting as performative wokeness. The same activists are heaping scorn on Bowser following her reversal. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Tragedy in Alaska after 3 skiers are believed to be dead, buried under a debris pile that could be as much as 100 feet deep following a severe avalanche. Correspondent Mike Hempen reports.
Alaska State Troopers say 3 skiers who were swept away by an avalanche were likely killed under the weight of snow nearly as deep as a 10-story building. If the deaths are confirmed, it would be the deadliest U.S. avalanche since 3 climbers were killed in a slide in Washington's Cascade Mountains 2 years ago. This slide caught 3 skiers late Tuesday afternoon in a skiing area about 40 miles south of Anchorage. The skiers had flown by helicopter to the mountain range. I'm Mike Hempen.
The Trump administration is signaling it will let Idaho enforce their emergency abortion ban, ending its challenge into a case that could have national implications. Correspondent Haya Panjwani explains.
The Trump administration is dropping an emergency abortion case in Idaho. It's one of the administration's first moves on the issue since President Donald Trump's second term began. The Justice Department filed a motion to dismiss the Biden administration lawsuit in a reversal that could have national implications for urgent care. The lawsuit had argued that emergency room doctors treating pregnant women had to provide terminations if needed to save their lives or to avoid serious health consequences in Idaho, which has one of the country's strictest abortion bans. The state argues that its law does allow life-saving abortions, and the Biden administration wrongly sought to expand the exemptions. Hayat Panjwani, Washington.
The Department of Justice has announced charges against 12 Chinese state-sponsored hackers working in tandem to cause chaos in computer systems in large companies and the U.S. government. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
The Department of Justice has announced criminal charges against 12 Chinese government-linked hackers who are accused of hacking more than 100 American organizations. A DOJ spokesman said that those charged, which include contract hackers and Chinese law enforcement officials, targeted organizations in the United States and worldwide for the purpose of suppressing free speech and religious freedoms. The DOJ also confirmed that 2 of the indicted are related to the Silk Typhoon hack of last year. All the people charged played a key role in China's hacker-for-hire ecosystem and have been working in a multi-year for-profit computer intrusion campaign dating back to 2013. Evidence also indicates that one hacker was linked to the recent widespread hack of the U.S. Treasury in December of last year. Evidence also indicates the reports that we gave last year on these matters are related and have cost the U.S. government and private companies almost $1 billion. For more, visit chuckpalm.com.
America in the Morning continues with a look at sports. Here's Robert Workman.
NBA, the Cavaliers held off the Heat last night 112-107 for their 12th consecutive victory, this one officially clinching a playoff spot for Cleveland, the first team to do that in the association this year. James Harden poured in 50 points as the Clippers fought off the Pistons 123-115. Thunder got 41 from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in their win over the Grizzlies. OKC leads the West. Celtics snuffed out the Blazers. Peyton Pritchard had a career-high 43 for Boston. Bucks blasted the Mavericks. Giannis Antetokounmpo had 32. He moves past the 20K point level for his career. College hoops, number 4 Tennessee falls at Mississippi 78-76. Jamin Brakefield scored all of his game-high 19 points in the final 11 minutes for the Rebels. 5th-ranked Florida got a win at number 7 Alabama. NHL, the Capitals trimmed the Rangers 3-2 in overtime. Alex Ovechkin tied it in the third with goal number 885. He's 10 away from passing Wayne Gretzky's record. Goalie Charlie Lindgren with a view of the Great Eight from the other end of the ice.
It's been absolutely unbelievable. It feels like every single game he finds a way to put the puck in the back of the net. It's been just a really fun journey to watch. And, I mean, it goes to show how special of a player he is.
Tom Wilson got the winner for the East leaders. Senators shaded the Blackhawks 4-3 in overtime. Blues clipped the Kings 3-2 in a shootout. Robert Thomas had the tying goal in regulation for the note and the winner in the tiebreaker. Golden Knights sapped the Maple Leafs 5-2, and the Canucks got one more puck than the Ducks 3-2. NFL linebacker Joey Bosa's 9-year run with the Chargers is over. LA yesterday released the 5-time Pro Bowl player they chose 3rd overall in 2016. It saves the team about $25 million in cap space. And Seahawks star wideout DK Metcalf has requested a trade. He's been in Seattle the past 10 years. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When we return on America in the Morning, prayers for the Pope, his health improving. After these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The ratings are in, and Donald Trump's speech to the joint session of Congress Tuesday night drew an estimated 36.6 million viewers. That figure down from the first speech he gave in his first term in office, but also beat Joe Biden's initial congressional address in 2021 by nearly 10 million viewers. The president's first address to Congress in 2017 drew more than 47 million people. The numbers from Nielsen show his most watched time was more than a half hour after he started speaking, and 7 out of 10 people watching Trump were 55 years of age or older, while just 6% were between the ages of 18 and 34. Pope Francis was unable to conduct services on Ash Wednesday, but as correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports, the pontiff's condition has slightly improved as he remains hospitalized in Rome.
A cardinal took the Pope's place, leading a short penitential procession between two churches, and was to read a homily prepared for the pontiff marking Ash Wednesday. In its latest update on Francis's health, the Vatican said the Pope rested well overnight, waking up shortly after 8 a.m. after a second night sleeping with the ventilation mask. Francis remains in stable condition with a guarded prognosis, meaning he's not out of danger. Francis's hospitalization began on February 14 and is the longest of his 12-year papacy. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
More details emerging into the investigation of the death of Hollywood legend Gene Hackman and his wife at their New Mexico home. Kevin Carr reports.
The cause of death of legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa has not yet been determined, but Santa Fe County Sheriff Adam Mendoza said they have ruled out one possibility.
We're doing a timeline from the time of death and the autopsy and the results, and we're going to start working our way backward.
Hackman, 95, was found dead on February 26 in his home during a wellness visit. The 65-year-old Arakawa was found in the bathroom with one of their dogs, also deceased, close by. Authorities originally suspected either a gas leak or carbon monoxide poisoning, although preliminary autopsy results did not indicate carbon monoxide. The gas company had issued 5 red tags to the residents, but the sheriff's office said that only 1 red tag was for a non-lethal leak in one of their stove burners. The other 4 red tags were for code violations that did not involve gas leaks or carbon monoxide. Mendoza has said there's no signs of foul play, but authorities continue to investigate the timeline. Hackman had a pacemaker, which the authorities have used to estimate the day he died.
An initial interrogation was conducted of Mr. Hackman's pacemaker. This revealed that his last event was recorded on February 17th, 2025. That is a very good assumption that was his last day of life.
Other evidence has been collected from the scene, including 2 cell phones, medication, medical records, and a 2025 planner. Toxicology reports are not expected for several weeks. I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show for today, Thursday, March 6th, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.